Debris is flying all over the place here.
This hurricane was an absolute monster.
We started with nothing. Michael crippled us.
I never seen nothing like it.
Fox 17 News is dedicated to keep you safe during any type of severe weather. And while it's something we don't talk about often here in Middle Tennessee, hurricanes do impact us in some way, shape, or form. You may remember Hurricane Harvey a couple years ago in 2017 was the first Category 5 hurricane since Wilma back in 2005. It sent nearly 40 inches of rain towards Houston. This is the track that Harvey took, making landfall on the 25th of August 2017, just south of Houston near Corpus Christi. As it made landfall, Harvey then sort of hung out here in Texas before making a trek towards Nashville and Tennessee. Again, dumping nearly 40 to 50 inches of rain in Texas was incredible to see. But it wasn't done yet. Harvey then made its way over the Mid-South and into parts of Tennessee as a very strong tropical depression. And with that, if you remember, we saw a lot of rain and saw quite a bit of severe weather. These are typically the types of impacts that we can sometimes see from hurricanes. Of course, it all depends on that track. If that track is more to the left of where the circulation is, that's when we could typically see more of a severe weather event, and that is what happened here. In addition to that, it was slow moving, which produced major flooding concerns here in Middle Tennessee as well. We had 4 tornadoes from Hurricane Harvey, or what was left of Harvey. It was a tropical depression at that point. We had an EF1 in Davidson County and an EF0 in Davidson County. Also one in Murray County and another one out in Perry County, both EF0s. Again, it's when that area of low pressure is just left of Middle Tennessee that puts us in a sweet spot for severe weather and potential tornadoes. In fact, especially tornadoes with the circulation of the low and putting us in that sweet spot for spin-up tornadoes that can occur. And that's what happened here from Harvey. Now, for us, we were looking at a ton of rain as well. August 30th through the 2nd is how much rainfall we picked up here. The map showing anywhere between 6 to 8 inches plus in the bullseye, in this pink bullseye, more like 3 to 5 for folks in orange, and then yellow we saw about 1 to 2. But it did result in a lot of flooding concerns and problems across a lot of Middle Tennessee. Again, depending on the system, each one's a little bit different, but it can often contain a ton of moisture because it is a tropical system. It often carries a lot of water and a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, and that can lead to flooding rainfall. And that's what we had here as far as Harvey is concerned. Lots of pictures coming out of Middle Tennessee and right here in Nashville of flooding rainfall that we had from this event in particular. Now, we look again at what we can expect as far as hurricane categories go. So getting back to our Saffir-Simpson scale here, Harvey, for example, came ashore in Texas as a Category 4. Now, again, we're not going to feel those direct impacts as far as hurricanes go here in Tennessee, but we can absolutely see some of those indirect impacts, which do include severe weather, tornadoes, and flooding rainfalls. But again, our categories here stretch from a 1 up to a 5, where 1 typically will see winds sustained at 74 to 95 miles per hour, and that can go all the way up to a Category 5 hurricane with 157 miles per hour, where catastrophic damage can occur. So again, 1 through 5 is what we use for our categories of hurricanes. Somewhat similar, we'll say, an EF0 to an EF5 as far as tornadoes go, but 1 to 5 is what we do for hurricane categories here in the U.S. Coming up, lessons learned, what 2 massive hurricanes taught us all in 2018. The year 2018 will be remembered for two devastating hurricanes here in the U.S. Florence and Michael caused nearly $50 billion in damage, according to NOAA. Lessons learned from the storms can help you keep your family safe. Florence reminded us hurricanes are much more than just wind. Our sister station in New Bern, North Carolina, was many miles from the eye's landfall, but our team lost their station when water stormed ashore.
This storm was coming in, it just looked different angle, different intensity.
This storm is a monster.
This thing was going to make a run towards our coast as a Cat 4 or maybe even a weak Cat 5.
It's big.
It's going to cover pretty much all North Carolina.
And it's vicious.
This had the potential of being a catastrophic storm.
It is an extremely dangerous,
This is serious.
life-threatening,
Scared, yeah.
historic hurricane.
It was a perfect storm.
Our station is about 500 yards from the Neuse River. We started continuous coverage about 4:30 that morning.
Your emergency officials are asking you to evacuate.
Began to watch the storm coming in. We had crews out.
I called Mike McCormick up. He said, go to Morehead City. When I got down there, I saw sailboats that kind of broke free. I remember jumping out, shooting this aluminum siding, just blowing down the street.
And I went out to meet with one of the field crews that were out, and it seemed to be coming up a little bit quicker than what we were expecting.
Ariel, show us what you're seeing right now.
It's been non-stop. I'm gonna get the mic out of the way. Just a ton of rain right here.
It's an eerie feeling when you're driving on the road and you're the only person out there listening to these tornado warnings.
Hazard, tornado. Source, radar indicated rotation. Impact, flying debris will be dangerous to those caught without shelter.
Early in the evening, as we were watching the different points where we thought water could come in, water started coming over, our escape route. And so we made the decision to go on and evacuate the station.
We have the situation that has developed here at the station, and that is that the water getting close to the building, that the building has been evacuated.
We were able to switch our coverage to our Myrtle Beach station so we could continue tracking the storm and providing information for our viewers.
As we told you earlier, we had to evacuate our building, and now we're being told that our sister station in Myrtle Beach is going to continue our coverage so that we can continue the evacuation of this building because of the rising water. So we're going to take you now to the coverage from our sister station in Myrtle Beach.
It was just a deflating feeling.
It was those persistent northeast winds that continued to pile up water in so many places.
In fact, Florence was like a bulldozer, but this time instead of pushing dirt, she was pushing water.
We've been on the air for our sister station in New Bern, WCTI, because the crews were forced to evacuate their own building overnight.
We are going to still continue to cover this storm. Again, this is going to go down as a historic storm for us here in eastern North Carolina.
Hey guys, now that it's morning, we're starting to see a little more of the flooding and the damage of what's going on.
Downtown, there's like this little circle. I look up, and it looks like there's like a tugboat there. So I jump out immediately. I start putting the dish up.
The deck at Persimmon's restaurant usually busy with activity, but today not the kind of activity you'd want to see.
Before the storm, we positioned a satellite truck at our transmitter. We were feeding that up the satellite and down, and we were able to get an engineer out to the transmitter who turned the truck on, and boom, all of a sudden we were on the air.
And someone came up to me and said, "Hey, that's Lieutenant Governor Forrest."
I told him what had happened to the station and that we needed to get some information out to people.
What's the biggest thing you want people to know?
I think, that, again, it's still not over. I know it's hard for people to believe that. So this is what one of the roads look like as I'm driving down the river walk. You can still see how the water's coming through over the seawall. Again, a lot of these people have basements.
Bill next door here, he has water in his house. He said that since the house has been built, there's never been water in that house. So, and that was, he talked about 1700s.
You can come in.
Okay.
So
This is the formal sitting area, and as you can see, the water came up above the couch. This was actually sitting adjacent to this corner here.
Mayor Dana Outlaw, and thank you so much for coming out. I know you're busy right now. What's the first thing you want the folks at home to know?
The safety of our citizens. This is still an event. It's not over.
We're still stuck in these heavy bands, and what we're concerned about here is areas like Newport, like Burgal, Rose Hill, Magnolia.
And we just slowly kept finding a way to keep going. It just kept going and going and going until we had done 6 hours of coverage that day. We're all just drenched through and through, and we were excited to know the television station was back on the air. And what a gut punch when you walked in the station and you saw the water, you saw the mud on the ground. And while we'd only taken maybe 6 inches of water, the destruction was unbelievable. The smell when you walked in, it was so pungent. We had to keep the news going. We sent Carl Puglisi out, go scout a location for us to do news that night.
And for some reason I said, oh, let me go down this street and just see how bad it is.
And he found an area, it's only about 10 blocks from the television station.
Beach Street is a block away from the Neuse River.
It just looked like a wall of water had come through. It came under these houses on the river that were on stilts, and the water just rushed under, and there was this neighborhood of about 8 or 10 houses, and they were just all flattened. I mean, there was concrete steps about 3 up, and it was one of the highest points in the neighborhood.
Want to walk you through exactly where we are right now. We've been off the air since Thursday, but bringing you live broadcasts again.
So we did the newscast for 6. Now what are we going to do for 11? It was pitch black on Beach Street. We strategically parked every vehicle to light up the street.
It was kind of surreal that you're surrounded by people's stuff everywhere that you could look.
This is our commitment to you to get you the very latest information you need and your loved ones need.
Also remember, the governor will be here tomorrow, and there are reports that the president will be too.
Good night.
Florence drenched the Carolinas for days. The majority of storm damage was from rain inland, sending rivers over their banks. The severe flooding lasted for weeks. The recovery will take years. But the worst of times brought out the best in people. We learned a new phrase, New Bern Strong.
We found restaurants flooded, houses damaged.
We heard a loud thud and looked out, and the chimney had fallen off the side of the house.
People's roofs peeled off.
And probably a minute later, the roof just started peeling off.
This is so terrible.
It's pretty bad. It looks like it's a total loss.
People started kind of emerging from their houses.
The concrete got lifted up out of the ground.
I knew it was going to be bad. Pictures don't tell you the whole story until you see it, and you think this is where you were hoping to retire.
This is truly a tragedy.
This was the amazing part. People that had lost almost everything, and they were upbeat. They were positive. They would tell us, well, you know what, we're all right, we're fine, we all made it. There are people that are worse off than us.
The biggest thing is I went in those shelters. We had church services in all 3 shelters around New Bern yesterday. And the spirit and the faith is strong. That's what's made New Bern what it is for 300 years. And it's going to be that way for the next 300.
And then we broke down again, and we had to be on the move. What were we going to do next? How were we going to bring viewers to where they could experience what's going on?
This is a special edition of News Channel 12.
Good evening, everyone. Valentina Wilson and Wes Goforth. We're live outside Temple Baptist Church right in the heart of New Bern, where a huge relief effort is underway. We're talking about the Red Cross Salvation Army and North Carolina Baptist men getting food to people who need it.
Governor Roy Cooper, thank you for coming down. What have you seen around New Bern today?
Clearly, there's a lot of devastation in a historic, wonderful town that is part of North Carolina and part of our history. But I've also seen a lot of people who are determined And although frustrated, they are encouraged because of each other. They're building each other up.
We were live with the governor in the line, handing out food, talking to the people.
Did you guys get damage in your house? Not in the house. We did lose our fridge, though.
You started to hear people's stories and you were so moved. And at the same time, you were still struck by how upbeat everybody was. They would all say, well, you know, don't worry about us, we're fine. You know, there's other people that are worse off than us. We'll get through this. I began to understand this New Bern spirit. They call it New Bern Strong.
It's a beautiful day. The worst is over, you know. We've been scared to death with the water.
It's drying out. We've removed the debris.
I woke him up at 3:30 in the morning. I said, it's coming over the porch.
It don't look good now, but we'll give it a little time. People in New Bern are resilient. We've been through it before.
Anytime you felt like you were tired, you felt like you were hungry, we were wet for several days, you never stopped and complained about your situation because everybody around us was so much worse and they were in good spirits. How could you not be? We took people to the intersection of news and humanity and showed them what was really happening in a personal way that couldn't be done from a television station.
Hurricane Florence was one of the most powerful storms ever to hit the Carolinas. To the families who have lost loved ones, America grieves with you, and our hearts break for you.
Hey, we're live here at Temple Baptist Church in New Bern. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see the scene at Temple Baptist. They're handing food to the people in the drive-thru here. I can only imagine the surprise they get when they pull up and see their meals being handed to them by President Trump.
President meeting a lot of people in New Bern along North Craven Street, Val, and then River Drive, who had lost really everything, and you know, giving them a lot of hope.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Our community's a close one.
Thank you. How's it
doing
all going?
really well. It's rough, but we're close.
So you've never seen one like this?
Never.
You've been here for years and you haven't seen it?
Over 30 years.
Hey, it's got to be close to Haiti. We're going to be with you. You know that. We're with you already.
After the governor's tour with the president, he came here to the fire department in Newport, where he spent time with first responders, and I saw him offering a lot of words of encouragement.
What we've seen is the resilience and spirit of North Carolinians. We've seen a lot of damage, but we've also seen people who were filled with hope and determination to rebuild.
I'm really grateful for sunshine.
And it's just such a sweet town.
Couldn't imagine living anywhere else.
Nope. We're handing out homemade cookies to bring happiness back to New Bern.
Just trying to brighten people's days and just get through this hard time, really.
Here's cookies for all of you guys.
For all of you guys.
Thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
We can't cut down trees and we're not electricians or anything, but we can bake and cook. So.
Would you like some cookies? Of course.
New Bern, here.
Doing this to make us happy.
We're
That's
trying.
exactly it.
Just something sweet to brighten your day.
We'll get it back. Right. We'll get all this trash out, and then the grass will grow again. When people get back down here, we'll get this cleaned up.
Hey, we survived.
We survived, yes. We call us the Wade House survivors.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to come back tomorrow, bake some more.
Yep.
It'll get better. It'll get better.
Understanding how hurricanes are named, an inside look at the process. Welcome back to our hurricane special. Have you ever wondered where the names come from when we talk about these storms that are out in the Atlantic or even in the Pacific? They come from the World Meteorological Organization. They come up with names and then they lay them out, usually in girl, boy, girl form. So we'll rotate each gender by the names here. So Andrew has actually already been used this season, so we can cross that off. Barry will be our next name storm for this 2019 season. And if we have one storm that is large enough and creates damage to the point that it needs to be retired, it will so. For example, Katrina's been retired, Harvey has been retired, Michael has been retired. So if we get a big enough storm, they will retire that name and then replace it with a new one. So this is our list of names for the 2019 season. We talk about when that hurricane season really gets going. It's usually August through October. So pretty quiet right now in the late part of June and even through July. But really, as we get into August, climatologically speaking, we start to see more activity in the Atlantic due to the fact mainly because the warm waters out in the ocean, out in the Atlantic, they're really heating up through the late part of the summer and into the early fall. So by September 10th, that's our peak. And then we see that peak then quiet down into the late part of the year. Of course, the end of November being the end of hurricane season. So with it being June, this is where we would typically find development and tropical formation here. Normally it's in the Caribbean Sea, along with the Gulf of Mexico. A little bit more likely for places off the coast of Florida as well. One of the potential tracks that we tend to find will be off the Yucatan Peninsula and streaming up towards the Texas coastline. Another track that is somewhat favored, climatologically speaking, is coming out of the Caribbean and then working its way through the Gulf of Mexico into Florida. Then we take a look at September as things really get heating up, or they really start to heat up and get going for the season. Really anything is fair game here throughout the Atlantic, but typically we will start to see more of that formation happening off the coast of Africa and then work its way across the entire Atlantic Ocean. So all of this in red is the most likely places where we start to see these hurricanes fuel and really get going for potential landfall across portions of the Americas here and into the Caribbean islands. So favored tracks again coming from the coast of Africa across the Atlantic. Another location that we will typically watch for September formation would be out of the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico as well. And again, September being the peak of hurricane season. I want to thank you for watching our hurricane special this evening. Fox 17 News at 10 is next.